So, as I assume most of you are aware, After was originally a sexually explicit Harry Styles fanfiction uploaded to Wattpad in 2013 by Anna Todd, previously known as Imaginator1D. These were the good old days when colored pants were in, I was thriving, and I could read all the bad boy wish fulfillment I desired. Yet despite my ever-growing obsession with Wattpad, I never actually did read After. The whole One Direction era sort of passed me by because I was 14. And much too cool for boy bands. I was, however, acutely aware it existed, mostly because at the time it was hard to be an avid Wattpad user and not know that After existed. It went viral to the point that it and its 3 sequels and prequel were published as regular fiction novels. Then recently, the first novel was adapted into a theatrically released movie, and now you're watching a YouTube video about it, so I guess it's finally reached the pinnacle of entertainment prowess. Since I've known the adaptation would be happening, I've known this video would be happening. If not because y'all are asking me to make it, then for the sweet algorithmic boost that tagging Hessa is sure to give me. Originally though, this was meant to be just another addition into my garbage movie series. But when I sat down to write the script, having only seen the movie, I kept writing about my assumptions regarding the book. Eventually I realized that I couldn't confidently talk about the movie without reading the book. Not because it's impossible to critique an adaptation based on its own merit, but because After is a unique scenario. One of only 2 theatrically released fanfiction smut series, as far as I'm aware anyway. The discourse surrounding this movie is inherently tied to Wattpad, Anna Todd, One Direction, 50 Shades of Grey, erotica, consent, everything, and I didn't feel comfortable talking about any of that without having read the source material, and so I read it. My intention was to read both the Wattpad and published editions, but after I'd finished the Wattpad version and started the published version, I realized they were virtually the same. See, Wattpad After is the story of a college freshman meeting punk hottie Harry Styles and proceeding to fight with him for 99 chapters, and Paperback After is the story of college freshmen meeting punk hottie Hardin Scott and proceeding to fight with him for 97 chapters. But this time the characters say yeah instead of yay, which is highly disappointing.
Yay, Harry, I do.
Yay.
Yay, what?
Yay, he admits.
Yay, I haven't ever actually slept.
Yay, I'm fine. I lie.
I mean, yay, if you want to dump him, go for it.
Yay, you wanted to stay longer.
Yay, we have plans.
Yay, I was drunk, remember?
Yay, he does.
Yay.
Thank
Yay,
God.
I am sorry.
Yay, get inside.
I am not a prude. Yay, I will admit I am, but not by any means wild.
Yay, I answer and turn back around.
Yay, my name is Tessa. And yay, I have girls that I... Okay, I'm not saying that.
At least they still neglect to use contractions.
Tessa, what is wrong? No, we are talking. I am friends with Liam too. I am going. Yay, he is my friend. I am sorry. I know. I am sorry. Hey, I am sorry. Yeah, but she is passed out.
Basically, I bought it in advance only to end up skimming and collecting screenshots because it's the same with the exception of a name-changing bot. Or if you're looking for me to be completely fair in my assessment, I guess I'll admit that there are added and redacted passages. Words are shifted around to make it sound better. The ending was elongated to include what was originally the beginning of the sequel. I wouldn't say the light revision is worth buying something that you could read for free though, unless you're a YouTuber or something. I'm also immeasurably surprised by all the things I imagined would be revised that weren't. Things I thought a publisher might take issue with or that Anna Todd herself might have rethought in editing. Not even huge story-altering changes, just minute rewordings that would give critics less of an opportunity to pounce like I'm about to. For instance, the near billion times Tessa ruthlessly slut-shames her female antagonist.
They aren't just dancing, they're groping and grinding against each other. Molly is still perched on top his lap like Molly is still perched on his lap like the whore she is. I hope everyone doesn't include part-time hoe Molly. So where is Molly, I ask, at a Skinks R Us sale?
Sorry if I don't dress like a slut like all the girls around you.
Unlike her, I don't go around making out with everyone.
Or the deliberate emphasis on Hardin's lack of regard for consent.
I'm cut off by his lips against mine. I push at his chest to stop him, but he doesn't budge. I feel his tongue trying to pry its way in between my lips, despite my attempts to push him away. It's no use, he's stronger than me. Kiss me, Tessa. Tessa, he says against my lips. I shake my head and he grunts in frustration. Without my permission, Hardin slowly slides. Now turn around and don't peek. I put my hands on my hips. No. What do you mean no? How can he be telling me no? I won't turn around. I want to see you. Oh, okay, but I just smile, shake my head, and turn the light. Hardin whines, and I smile to myself as I unzip my skirt. It pulls at my feet when another light clicks on. Hardin, I hurry and pick the skirt back up. Hardin is leaning up on his elbows to look. Holding me in place, his lips touch mine, and his tongue tries to push through my lips, but I refuse. He eases his head back slightly. Kiss me back, Tess, he demands. No, He doesn't ask for my permission before tugging at the fabric, pulling my I just don't like being told no. His voice is low, but much softer than it was. Can we talk outside? He asks and looks towards his father. No, I say quietly. Every time Hardin and I talk, I end up crying. But Hardin stands up so quickly and grabs my hand, pulling me to my feet. We'll be outside, he announces and pulls me. I say, Hardin, stop, but I don't recognize my voice. It's low and husky, and my mouth is dehydrated. He doesn't stop.
I mean, what's the harm in backspacing a couple of those without my permission? It must be hard to defend your book when you've romanticized sexual assault in its most basic form. And no, he's not supposed to be a good example of a boyfriend isn't a satisfactory excuse. The book might be halfway self-aware that Hardin is a verbal, emotional...
That's who you are. That's what you do. You find people's weaknesses and you exploit it. Words travel quickly in our group, Tessa. Remember that. Is he trying to threaten to tell his friends about all the things? I just want to be the only person you ever love. I can't show any weakness or he will pounce on it. That really hurt my feelings. I know, that's why I said it. He answers a little too I don't mean to make you cry. I open my eyes and look at him. Yes, you do. That's your exact intention every time you say hurtful things to me.
And let's face it, nearly physical abuser.
He grabs my wrist. I struggle for a second before he releases it. He turns me around, pinning both my wrists to the wall and steps up. Don't ever do that again, he says through his teeth. Do what? Let go of me right now. I'm not afraid of Hardin the way I probably should. I look down at my wrists in his hand. His grip isn't tight, but it holds me in place. His other hand rises into the air and I flinch. I try to take a step back from him, but his grip is too strong. I get the feeling that if I don't follow, he will drag me into the car. A sudden yank on my legs makes me yelp in surprise, and I quickly find Hardin lifting me off the bed and throwing me over his shoulder. He ignores my kicking and pleas to put me down until he reaches my bed. I glare at him silently, afraid that if I fight him too hard, he'll leave, which I know I don't Hardin grabs my arm yet He grabs my arm and I jerk away. Why do you always touch me like that? Grab my arm again and I will slap you. He grabs my arm again, but I can't manage to follow through on my promise. I back away, making him take 3 steps towards me. He steps toward me and grabs my wrist, pushing me back against the wall. I want to scream at him to get off me, to let me go, and demand that he put my work back. I want to slap him, to make him leave, but I can't. For a second, I think he might slap me.
But it all comes down to framing. If After was a story framed in realism, meant to be a cautionary tale about toxic relationships, then yeah, okay, there's a big difference between having a book that has a messy relationship and writing a dating guide that says this is exactly how your life should be. But After isn't that story. After is framed in romance. The text intends for the audience to ship Tessa and Hardin. It's not the morally ambiguous drama that the crew's pretending it is.
Usually in romance novels, you know, sometimes they're a bit stereotypical, but I found these characters a little bit more complex.
I think they're just realistic characters, but yeah, I think that it just all stems from well-rounded characters that Anna created.
It's real life.
Thank you.
Yeah, nothing's black and white. There's a bit of gray.
They have layers, and that's how people are, and especially young people.
It's an out-of-touch, serial-formatted fan fiction in which every mistake is forgiven and the main characters end up together. However, to play devil's advocate with myself, maybe Anna had a little bit of a point. It's debatable whether After or any other story that glamorizes bad behavior actually influences people to pursue those same bad behaviors. I, for one, spent most of my formative years reading not After, but a myriad of Wattpad stories exactly like it and just as bad as it. Yet if Cole Stone from The Bad Boys Girl knocked on my door today like, let's date, I would say, no thank you. I'm sure that if we posed that hypothetical to fans of After, a lot of them would say the same. Not all of them, but a lot of them. I'm just saying there's an argument to be made that art is escapism and it's okay for it to test the boundaries of what's acceptable in real life, because at the end of the day, Tessa isn't a real human and she hasn't actually been endlessly tormented by this guy. So is it okay to ship something like Hessa to enjoy something like After as long as you're self-aware of its problems? Like, I'm no stranger to recognizing flaws in something but just deciding to like it anyway. I think it would be a mistake to assume that After fans are oblivious oblivious to the merit behind the controversy. We all have guilty pleasures, even me, especially me.
What? I love garbage.
Like, let's not pretend I'm not an avid chair shipper, despite the fact that Chuck is an attempted rapist and tried to sell Blair for a hotel. It wasn't too long ago that I proclaimed I loved the kissing booth, even though Noah is the embodiment of toxic masculinity at best. I'm starting to change my tone a little bit, and I'm starting to expect more from the media I consume. But still, I don't think Anna Todd is the best author on the planet or anything, but if you ignore all the horrendous toxicity, which she calls mess, and the weirdly gross and awkward love scenes and everything else that's bad about After, I think she does convey the intensity of her character's emotions well. I think that's why people like After, and why people like half of the, I hate using this word, problematic couples that we do. Think about like iconic romances in TV and movie history, and think about how many of them feature things that you probably shouldn't do in real life. For instance, you really shouldn't stalk people. Maybe don't pine after someone under the guise of friendship until they break up with the person they're with. Perhaps we shouldn't kiss people when they say they don't want to be kissed because we think they're lying. Just a suggestion. My point is, After is far from the first piece of media to venture into this sort of territory, but it does get a lot more pushback, partly because it does venture a lot further into that territory, but also, I think, because of what it is, an erotic fanfiction about Harry Styles. This would be a good time to mention that a lot of One Direction fans hate After. Weird, right? The one and only demographic you could count on to be into this whole thing is split about it. Basically, people are saying it's disrespectful to portray Harry as having these toxic character traits that Harden does. Even while I was reading, I couldn't help but think, you know, does Harry Styles think about all this? Sadly, he hasn't commented, which is probably for the best. When one half of your fan base is writing smut about you and the other half is writing a petition to cancel the movie adaptation of one of said smuts, then you just have to sit that one out. It is an interesting dilemma though. Is it okay to write fan fiction about real people, particularly when you're going to write them in a sexual way and give them character traits they themselves don't possess? This is where the conversation, I think, differs from something like 50 Shades of Grey. If you don't know, 50 Shades, like After, started as fan fiction. It was called Master of the Universe, and it was about Bella Swan and Edward Cullen. The difference here being that Bella Swan and Edward Cullen are not real people, whereas Harry Styles, unless he's a lizard person controlled by the Illuminati, is probably real. Where 50 Shades was called plagiarism, After is called defamation. And listen, the ins and outs of what is and isn't acceptable fan fiction is a complicated topic and one I don't feel totally confident speaking on. It's not something I'm really decided about yet. I will say though, again, this is hardly specific to After. Harry Styles has been written as sexy professors, stepdads, kidnappers, and just about every gross scenario under the sun. After is actually tame comparatively, so is the only reason people are up in arms about After because of its success, and is that justified? Looking through the Suspend Anna Todd hashtag on Twitter, it seems that a lot of people think this is bad for Harry's reputation, which I think is a stretch. I can understand calling After disrespectful to him as a person, but as far as its effect on his career and public perception, non-existent. Not a person on this earth read After and was like, that's probably what Harry's like in real life. Anyway, I think that's more than enough preamble about all the controversy surrounding this thing. Evidently, it's very complicated and interesting, but if I don't start talking about the movie soon, I never will. So obviously, I watched the movie before I read the book, and I was a lot more critical of it than I am now. It never had the opportunity to be good, considering its source material is just so flawed. But when you have read the book, especially back to back with watching the movie, it's clear how much was improved upon. The first thing being the far superior opening narration. Wattpad After begins with,
Tessa, I hear my mom's voice call from downstairs. I groan to myself and roll out of my tiny yet comfortable bed.
Paperback After begins with a boring paragraph about how important college is, and a movie After begins with,
my life before him was so simple and decided, and now after him, there's just after.
Not only is it more poetic, but it makes the title make sense. Something I find really strange about After is the title and lack of premise. You know how usually a romance movie will be based on some exciting or interesting idea, and then the title is derived from that premise? Teen accidentally sends love letters to all her past crushes, to all the boys I've loved before. Canadian woman intends to marry her employee in an attempt not to get deported. The proposal. Cowboys get at it on Brokeback Mountain. Brokeback Mountain. The thing about After is that being a fan fiction, its original premise was simply fallen in love with Harry Styles in college. And now that the Harry Styles bit has been redacted, it's just like two people having a romance. And it's called After because her life was different before she met him. Okay, that concept isn't even alluded to until the middle of the Wattpad edition. Poorly.
My life was much more simple before met Harry, and now after, it is complicated and stressful.
In the published version, it's moved to the end of the prologue, but still phrased annoyingly.
All that I'm certain of is that my life and my heart will never be the same, not after Hardin crashed into them.
Then the movie, despite having to do that thing where narration only shows up in the beginning to accomplish this, actually made it sound kind of interesting, like maybe there was thought behind this thing. I absolutely do not expect anybody watching After to think it's a masterpiece, but when you've read the book, it's just so hard not to notice how much they tried to improve upon their source material. I'd even be willing to say that it shows Anna Todd's growth as an author because she was heavily involved with the project. I think she co-wrote the screenplay. Everything that's wrong with the movie, in my opinion, was wrong with the book first. Keep that in mind as I talk about everything. Anyway, back to the plot, I suppose. Tessa is looking around her room all sad-like and carrying a cardboard box. Why? Because she's going to college, blah blah blah. Also helping her move is her mom, aka Selma Blair, and some curly-haired boy who assumes her brother until they start kissing. Although it seems that was intentional, and it's actually kind of funny.
Your brother's cute.
Oh, you mean Noah? No, he's my boyfriend.
His name is Noah, and you shouldn't get attached to him because the movie certainly doesn't want you to be. When they arrive at room B22,
B22?
the trio is faced with the most shocking plot twist of all time. Tessa's roommate is edgy? She wears fishnets? She does tarot readings? She wears more than one ring at a time? She has candles in a dorm room? She's a lesbian? Obviously, Tessa's mom has to storm out of the room demanding she change rooms, which is where one change from the book has unexpected repercussions. So Tristan, who is the blonde girl, was originally a man. It's altogether pretty cool that they decided Steph should be a lesbian in the movie, but it makes it seem like in this scene, perhaps Selma Blair is homophobic? I guess it wasn't totally clear that those two were romantically involved yet, but that was the impression I got before even reading the book. Something else that struck me as interesting is just how much more likable Tessa's character is when you aren't hearing her inner monologue, specifically in the fact that you can't tell how absurdly judgmental she is.
She's so irritating with her stupid pink hair and her skanky clothes. She is a slut. I'm surprised by my thoughts and my anger toward her, but it's true. I know I'm different from them, but to me, they are the different. When I walk into my freshman history class, the room is empty save one person. Since this person obviously cares about being on time too, I sit next to him. Where is everyone? I ask, and he smiles. Probably running across campus to barely make it here on time, he jokes, and I instantly like him. That's exactly what I was thinking. If anything, he should be grateful that I'm not judging him for the way he has destroyed his body with holes and tattoos. Okay, maybe I am judging him a little, but not to his face. I'm at least polite about our differences. In my home, tattoos and piercings are not a normal thing.
To be fair, in the books that was meant to be something she grows out of. I just don't think it was executed well enough for me to buy it. I mean, it's the last chapter when she says,
You are right, I shouldn't be here. I don't enjoy getting drunk and hanging all over every guy in the place. I snap. I hate confrontation usually, but I hate Molly even more.
However, in the film, she's more like a sheltered but kind-hearted gal. She's not profoundly afraid of tattoos or anything. So when Tessa goes to her first class, she meets the after equivalent of Liam, Landon. He also happens to be Hardin's soon-to-be stepbrother. He's mostly irrelevant in the movie. They need him for a couple of plot reasons, I guess, so here he is. Ooh. The next important thing that happens is that Tessa and Hardin meet. The way in which this happens is contrived, but also a very strange take on a meet cute. Tessa is showering in the co-ed bathroom she made quite clear she was uncomfortable with in the book.
I'm praying they aren't co-ed. My hopes are squashed when I reach the door. Sure enough, there are 2 stick figures printed on the sign. 1 male and 1 female. Ugh. Having males in the same shower room is sure to be very uncomfortable and awkward. I plan to set an alarm at least an hour earlier from now on in hopes that the co-ed room will be less crowded.
The shower takes too long to get warm, and I am paranoid that someone will pull back the thin curtain separating my naked body from a room of both genders.
Everyone seems to be comfortable despite the fact that they shouldn't be.
And while all that co-ed bathroom buildup might lead you to believe they meet in the bathroom, she actually realizes her clothes are soaked, so she has to go back to her room in just a towel when she notices that he's sitting on her bed reading The Great Gatsby, because it's really, really important that we know these two are bookish.
The Great Gatsby. It's a good book. Hate to spoil it, but it was all a dream.
Actually, it was all a lie.
Keep in mind, this is not the only time they'll be talking about classic literature in a strange way that's only meant to provide for the film's own agenda and not actually respect the literature. So blah blah blah, Tessa and Hardin hate one another, but that doesn't stop them from longingly staring at each other across a coffee shop. Eventually, Tessa's poorly acted roommate Steph insists Tessa go to a party with her.
We're gonna go to a party tonight.
Now, in the book, Tessa goes to 2 parties early on in the story, but in the movie, they combined the events of those 2 parties together. I cannot express how much less annoying it is to see all this happen at once than to be dragged through Tessa's mundane life through the day so we can get to a party at night again. Long story short, she meets the rest of the punk rock edgy gang. Fun fact, Harry's character on Wattpad was influenced not by regular Harry, but by Harry Styles' punk edits. They even include the part in the book where Hardin is disappointed in her for drinking, despite literally not knowing her at all, and being a bystander to her being pressured into it.
Are you drunk?
I don't drink. Just like you don't.
Apparently it's because he's sober like her, except for when he's upset, because Hardin binge drinks every time that he's even slightly upset, but like, who cares? Tessa can't drink, she's so pure. Anyway, they play truth or dare because that's totally something the edgiest of punks do, and Tessa is dared to...
I dare you to make out with Hardin.
But she does not. Put a pin in this. This is important later. Instead, she runs outside to call her brother boyfriend, and he's also mad at her for drinking. What I found strange is that when Hardin showed concern for her bending her morals to peer pressure, it was framed as romantic, but when her boyfriend did the same, it was framed as annoying. This is something that really bothers me about the movie and the book. Noah, despite doing very little wrong and being a far superior guy to Hardin, is constantly framed as like this boring, vanilla, useless, you've gotta dump him guy.
He is nice to me.
Nice. Isn't that just another word for boring?
All so that later when Tessa treats him like literal human garbage, we don't side with him and we still like Tessa. But guess what? I see what you're trying to do, and I am making the executive decision to care about him anyway. No. So then Tessa wanders the place and stumbles upon Hardin's room to find his annotated copy of Wuthering Heights. They have a little almost kiss, which is a lot less romantic and a lot more disgusting upon the plot twist later, but the same could be said about every scene in the movie. Then she goes to an English course that she happens to share with 4 of the other named characters. This is when I get really annoyed with the relentless shout-outs to classic literature. Not because I don't enjoy stories drawing parallels to other stories, I actually like that, but because after routinely ignores the actual plots and themes of the books it references in favor of using them as a jumping point for the characters to just declare their desires. In some ways, that's the point. Like in this scene, they get in a fight about Pride and Prejudice, and they're ultimately meant to be fighting about themselves. But even before they get to that point, the conversation they're having about Pride and Prejudice is so pointless and confusing.
She gave Darcy a way worse time than he deserved.
Are you saying that Darcy was not in love with Elizabeth?
What? How is that the conclusion she drew from his statement? Why? Oh wait, I know why. Because if she says this, then Hardin can go on to talk about what he thinks about the concept of love.
Love is just a transaction. We present the correct set of desirable traits, and boom.
Do you see what I mean? If you're going to talk about Pride and Prejudice, then talk about Pride and Prejudice, at least for a little bit. Anyway, some other things happen, but the next thing of note is when Hardin takes Tessa to a little lake where they do some kissing and rubbing, which was a lot more than just kissing and rubbing in the book, but we don't have to get into that. How, you may ask, did they go from fighting about Pride and Prejudice to kissing and rubbing in a lake? Tessa ran into Hardin at the coffee shop and he was like,
Tessa, let's just start over. Just reset and we can be...
What? Friends?
but then immediately changed his mind.
I don't think we can ever be just friends.
Alrighty. As to why Tessa goes with it without hesitation, even though she's cheating on her boyfriend, couldn't tell you. Next, they go to dinner together and we learn that Tessa hates ketchup.
No ketchup. It's very un-American.
I'm full of surprises.
This little fact about Tessa is mentioned constantly in the book. I found out that it is that way because Anna Todd also doesn't like ketchup.
But it's the little things about Tessa. With Tessa, it's like, I love Tom's shoes and I have blonde hair and I hate ketchup. She hates ketchup.
I've got to say, girl, disliking ketchup is not a personality trait. It just isn't. This peaceful dinner doesn't last for long though, because the punk rock edgy gang arrive and suddenly Hardin is all,
You know, I am gonna tell Noah about us.
Us? What do you mean us?
It's a pretty common theme throughout the books that Hardin is all nice with Tessa, but the second any other human shows up, he's just the worst. I'm just gonna say, maybe that's a red flag. Basically, she says she's going to dump Noah for him, and he's like,
If you want to dump Mr. High School, then go ahead, but don't do it on my account.
so then shockingly, she doesn't break up with Noah anyway? This is something that really upset me in the book and now the movie, because it doesn't seem self-aware that it's wrong to intend to break up with somebody for someone else, but then stick with them upon being rejected. They just want me to be on Tessa's team so bad, and I am not. Noah. Anyway, instead of calling Noah up and saying, hey, I cheated on you and I also realized I don't want to be with you, she goes home and gives herself a little makeover to a remix of Complicated.
Somebody else around everyone else.
When she does this in the book, it results in Hardin telling her,
Don't get so defensive. All I'm saying is your little makeover is a little extreme.
despite previously telling her,
You should dress for your body, Tessa. These clothes you wear hide all of your curves.
but in the movie she just immediately wipes it off. So this would be a good time to mention that I'm kind of impressed with the wardrobe and set design of this movie. The book makes a really big deal about how Tessa wears long skirts and it's so different from what the punk rock edgy gang wears, and the movie conveys that visually pretty well without making her look Amish, which is kind of how I pictured her while I was reading. It's pretty in your face, but I still appreciated it. Aside from that sort of thing, the movie is aesthetically pleasing but not visually meaningful. Just my 2 cents. So then, dun dun dun, Noah shows up to surprise Tessa. How cute is that? He deserves so much better. Especially considering a couple scenes from now, she leaves bed with him and ends up spending the night with Hardin. Yeah. So the gist is that they go to this bonfire party where they play Suck and Blow, because this punk rock edgy gang really love to play middle school party games. This whole adult man tries to kiss Tessa and the hooded, dangerous Hardin beats him up. Then off screen he goes home and destroys everything because he's mad that his dad is getting married. This is a common thing that Hardin does in the book. Something will upset him and then he'll break everything in his path. This is something, strangely, that Tessa slowly learns to be okay with because he has to express his feelings. And that's apparently character development. Let me just take note of that with this highlighter. Let fully grown men have violent temper tantrums anytime they're slightly upset about anything. Will I get a boyfriend now? Landon calls up Tessa, so she arrives to talk him down, but then they do some PG-13 loving instead. It's not until she wakes up that she remembers Noah exists, and when she runs back home to him, Hardin follows her. It doesn't take him long to realize she's been cheating on him. So the unsung hero of the After series departs, and he's not to be seen again until the end of the movie. Sad as this departure is, though, you would not believe how horrifyingly worse it is in the book. Where in the movie, Tessa cheats on Noah a total of 2 times, and when he finds out, she just sort of lets that go and pursues Hardin instead. In the book, though, Hardin hasn't admitted that he wants to date Tessa, so instead, she continues to date Noah after he graciously takes her back and continues to cheat on him. And then, when Hardin does decide he actually wants to date Tessa, he rolls up to her dorm room while she's with Noah and proclaims his love for her in front of him, to which she grabs Hardin's hand and then tells Noah to leave. I was baffled when I read it. Baffled. I don't know how Anna Todd expected me to root for Hardin and Tessa when they've proved to be nothing but awful and horrible to each other and every other human on Earth. It also doesn't hurt that in the movie Tessa feels quite bad about it and doesn't talk to Hardin for a while, but in the book she just starts dating Hardin. With Noah out of the picture, the movie loses any semblance of a plot it once had. That being because the midsection of the book is just argument after argument, on and off, hot and cold, repetitive fighting. But it seems like when it came to the movie, they wanted Tessa to be at least kind of a healthy relationship, and maybe they didn't want the audience to totally hate them. So they took out all the garbage, but they didn't have anything to replace it with besides a happy couple montage. Watch, thrilled, as Tessa and Hardin go to the library, as they kiss, as they go to the aquarium. To be fair, there are 2 important things that happen within that time. One, Tessa's mom financially cuts her off because she finds out she's dating Hardin, and then they move in together because of that. Although that's basically part of the couple montage as well, even though in the book it was something they argued about for chapters. But that could be said about everything in the movie. That in the book it was an argument for chapters. Hardin's dad's wedding is the perfect example of this. Throughout most of the book, Hardin and Tessa are having this ongoing, passionate, crazy argument about Hardin's dad. Mostly about how Tessa wants him to be nicer to them and how Hardin wants her to stop hanging around his family even though she knows he doesn't get along with them. I'm not kidding when I say it's a book-long, never-ending drama. But in the movie, they don't really talk about his family until they appear at the wedding and he says,
I cannot believe you've talked me into this.
Now, I know this is better. I strongly prefer this to the book, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't notice how much more boring it is this way. Because again, there's not a premise or real plot line to this story besides they argue. And so when you don't have them argue, it's nothing. Everything seems to be going absolutely swimmingly, actually, until the plot twist, which is what I'm going to talk about now. There's a couple of things that happen before the plot twist, but I don't have the time, okay? I don't. Okay, anyway, the whole thing about this story is apparently that Hardin only pursued Tessa as part of a bet. Cruel Intentions is shaking, I know. But there are a lot of differences between how this is handled in the book and in the movie. In the movie, when the gang was playing Truth or Dare and Tessa rejected Hardin, he made a bet. He bet that he could get her to fall in love with him.
You don't think I can make it happen?
Make what happen, Hardin?
Here's a dare. Make her fall in love with me.
However, in the book, upon finding out that she's a virgin, he makes a bet that he can have sex with her. And it's not just whether or not he can do it. It's a contest between him and Zed, who's this guy, by the way. Now, neither situation is acceptable. But I am so glad that they changed it. As if the entire story didn't already blur the lines of consent. Manipulating somebody into having sex with you and lying about the conditions in which you're having sex is quite rapey. Not to mention that in the movie it appears that Hardin drops the bet thing pretty early on, but in the book he was still participating in it when he had declared his love for her. He brought And this is the worst bit. The used condom and bloody sheets from their first time to show everybody and prove that it happened. I find it absolutely absurd that these two characters end up together. I should clarify though that Anna Todd herself has said that she regrets that bit and she was cool with everything being changed in the movie. So there's that. And aside from the gross moral problems with all this, I can't help but think that this reveal makes Hardin's previous actions seem counterproductive. Remember when she totally wanted to date him and he said, "No, I don't date." Was that part of your plan? I also wish there was some clarity on when he stopped pursuing the bet. Which bits of their romance are fabricated. Certainly that first almost kiss is, and then probably when he asks her to go to the lake. But does he change his mind at the lake or later? Because any later, and it's even grosser. Anyway, the movie ends with their English teacher giving Tessa one of Hardin's written assignments that she says,
I think it was actually written more for you than it was for me.
That's totally something a professor would do. Respecting her students' privacy? Who would? The paper is all,
I never thought I would find myself completely and utterly consumed by another until her.
So we leave off with what seems like an olive branch from Tessa, and the rest is up to the confirmed sequel. All in all, I can respect the steps that the movie takes to improve upon the book, but nothing could fix the mess that is after. And I think, in the end, we can all agree that the worst crime it's committed is insulting my lifestyle.
I'm actually having fun. Real fun. Not that average watching a good movie fun. Watching movies alone in this small room will be hell.